Hi, I hope you're doing well. So I felt like for the first session, a good question to kind of start this all off with was the question on how do you see issues of human sexuality affecting your practice now in the future? I felt like it was a good question because human sexuality is a part of and will always be a part of my practice as a social worker. And so right now I'm interning at Denver Family Institute as a case manager, and I have clients who are transgender, and my job is to find them Denver based resources to fit their needs and have those resources be transformative. So I've never done case management before this, and so it really opened my eyes to how ingrained transphobia and homophobia are in our society and in governmental resources. Um, Excuse me. Especially when it comes to, I think, rehab and rehabilitation centers, when they insist on separating people by their sex assigned at birth. And so it's something I'm working with right now. And I think it also will be definitely affecting my future practice as a social worker because I want to work with postpartum parents specifically. And so getting pregnant, going through pregnancy, post pregnancy are all huge aspects of sexuality. And so I think it's extremely important to be knowledgeable about human sexuality and to continuously inform myself and check in on any biases I have regarding sexuality. Yeah. And so then for also in relation to session one, the question on if you've ever experienced sexuality related trauma, oppression, or other difficult experiences, and how might it respond, or how might we show up to the class because of it. And this is mainly just for me to let you know, but for me, I had sex for the first time a few years ago when I was 18 years old, and it was a bit of a traumatizing experience, and so I've blacked out most of it, honestly, and so I'm been on this journey and I'm still on this journey of figuring out whether it was assault or not. And so, yeah, it's something I'm still trying to figure out and process. And so I know, at least I don't think it will come in the way of my learning for this course at all. But just kind of to let you know, like I'm always going to be prioritizing like my own healing journey over over DU. But yeah, and so I kind of want to just keep healing and figuring out how sexuality plays a part in my personal life while still being open in this course and learning. And also making sure that this is a safe space, and so and like the classroom setting. But yeah, so I would say I'm actually really optimistic that this course will help me in some ways. But yeah, it's just something I wanted to tell you and let you know in case anything did happen to come up in the future. But yeah, then for session two, the question on in what ways has your comfort level talking about sexuality changed or not this week? And so I know we were supposed to do the activity to talk about sexual slang terms on week 2, even though we ended up doing it on week 3. But this question felt kind of catered towards that activity, and I kind of wanted to talk about that activity, and so I am for this question / session 2, even though we did it session 3. Anyways, but I think for me with that activity, I do feel slightly more comfortable talking about sexuality in a more professional setting, like a classroom. I feel and have felt very comfortable talking about sex and sexuality with my friends and in small, confined places like one's apartment where no one will overhear us. But doing that experience and the activity that we mentioned earlier, it made me realize I don't really feel very comfortable talking about sexuality in spaces such as classrooms or with like authority figures, teachers, professors. And so for me, I think it has to do with shame and embarrassment. I was taught to basically be ashamed of sex growing up, like many people are, even though sexuality is a part of human nature from the time we're in our mother's wombs. But this activity, I think, it made me more comfortable talking about sex using sexual terms, both slang and scientific terms. And so it kind of took the weight and the stigma off those terms in the classroom professional setting. So it's definitely something I want to keep reflecting and thinking about moving forward. But yeah. And then the last question, or session 3, what biases may have come to the surface for you as we explore gender and sexual orientation identities that you may want to address in yourself? And so for me, this had mainly to do with the materials leading up to the session and the reading materials. And so going through the articles and especially watching, I think, Dr. Russo's presentation, I'm realizing or kind of reflecting that I have bias towards people who are polyamorous. Just reflecting on my life and conversations, whenever I have talked to people who are polyamorous in conversations, I realize I will usually say at some point, or they will say at some point, like, I don't care what other people do, like, that's just not for me, or I could never do that, but you can do whatever you want to do. And thinking about it from this session, this class session, and just in general, I think that was a way I othered polyamorous people. I never knew anybody who was openly polyamorous growing up, and I didn't meet someone who was openly polyamorous until last year, 2023. And so I'd always considered monogamous relationships like the norm, and this week made me realize kind of whenever I say I could never be polyamorous or like I could never do that, it's partially because I know I'd be too insecure in myself to be in a polyamorous relationship, but it's also because I don't think I've deconstructed the belief that society has taught me that monogamy is normal and polyamory is different or not normal. It's definitely something I want to continue to reflect on throughout this course, and really just learn ways to deconstruct my beliefs on what society has taught me is a normal relationship, so I can lessen my bias for myself and also so I can be the best practitioner for my clients. So yeah, this was over time. I'm so sorry, but thank you.